So on a regular basis, what I've told you, like whatever we are learning, right? Just try to write a blog about that on LinkedIn. Okay. Uh, it's just like have that habit from now itself, right? Keep yourself very engaging. The more and more will be engaged, right? So we just see today's world is what I told you about yesterday. It's about the user's world. People are using all these resources, and just creating a content like anything. They don't have any idea about the developer side, like how things are working. But it's all about how the trend is going. So have that habit from now itself. Start with let's say start understanding that particular part, where how exactly you can write a particular post or a blog. It is just like a way to keep yourself engaging. Okay, it's just like a keep way to just increase the more and more connections. Try to connect with everyone around, as I told you. I'll show you also today. So try to connect with everyone around. Like you have nearby people, like you have data scientists near you in USA, then HRs in the USA. So like what happens, those are the people whom you can contact and whom you're gonna ask for the referrals eventually as we move forward. So it's those are the people who we have to target. So from now only we are targeting them very perfectly, right? Second thing is, guys, you have to create, right? So you have to, as I told you about GitHub, right? So GitHub is the one that we need to think about. That also I'll tell you now how exactly you're gonna do it on a regular basis, right? So see, first of all, whatever projects that we'll be doing for you mostly will be on VS Code. Okay, so VS Code is something that you need to install in your systems. Very easy and straightforward implementation. All you need to do is just, let's say, this is like VS Code. Okay, so just go to VS Code, download, and whatever operating system that you are using, might be Windows, Ubuntu or RPM or a Mac OS, right? So whatever you are using, you can just simply download this particular part and you can just store it inside. You can just download it. A very very important thing, right? Because eventually we are going to write all the codes here only. We need to understand how to structure a particular code. So that is called as structuring a machine learning or a deep learning program, in simple words. So that is just a name. So you can structure any kind of project end to end. So writing that structure is something very important. So therefore we'll be doing that particular part. Initial few lectures, like let's say we'll be learning about simple tokenizations, we'll learning about some simple methods to extract the data, right? So for that particular part we'll be using like we'll be using solely our Jupyter notebook only. So for that particular part also, as I told you, have your VS Code completely ready. Many of them sorry, have your GitHub completely ready, sorry. Okay, so as I told you, GitHub is something that is an extremely important, right? So yesterday we started off with this particular part with every single batch that I do, and yesterday also the batch that started, we started in that. So it's like whatever you are doing, right? Whatever kind of project you are doing, whatever kind of things you are doing, we have to showcase this as an open source thing. Like you are doing that, and you have been doing it for very long. So it's like what happens, everyone gets access to it. They can see what kind of work you're doing. Because see, let's suppose in your, let's say let's say in a portfolio, or let's say on your LinkedIn, you just ask someone for a referral, right? And from that you can quickly say, okay, yeah, this is my this URL for this my GitHub. You can just go and check my work, right? Every time you can't be sending resumes, right? And no one, everyone downloads it. Let's suppose you're asking for a referral to, let's say, any data scientist. Okay, he might be looking for some kind of work in his company, or some freelancer he might be looking at. So at that particular time you should have all your work ready over here, right? So once we'll start building the website also, sorry, or a portfolio website also, at that time also we'll connect all this GitHub over there. So now what you need to do is very simple. Go to GitHub. Like this interface you will see. Mostly you won't see all these repositories because you don't have them. Either you can go here, right, create a new repository, or you can create it from here. Okay, click anything, click a new repository over here. Try to give any name. Let's suppose now you are starting with NLP. Let's say basics to advanced NLP, right? So let's say you're starting with this one, right? So in here you can just write a description. Let's say uh, let's say we can write something like a description can be anything, whatever you think is just again optional, you can keep it, but have a file, keep it public only, and always write a readme file over here, right? Now let me tell you what readme file basically is. So readme file is something you can just say whatever you have been doing in a whole project, it's just like a description about that. Okay, okay, this is what I have done in this particular thing, this is what you can find it here, this is what you can find it here. So instead of directly not everyone can understand a code base directly, or everyone should be interested to know what you have done over there rather than directly going into the code base. Okay, so always have this particular habit, right? So no need to add, it's git ignore is like by default. So now when I tell you about git ignore, right? So why this file is important, it will be automatically added. But guys, git ignore is a file. Let's suppose now you are working on a whole project, right? So in that particular project you have environment files, you have some data files, you have some API keys, you have some secret keys, right? So there are multiple files which are stored or which are already there in that particular project, which you cannot push to the GitHub, or which you cannot push to the let's say server or production. You need to keep them safe, you need to keep them at a place where it is not visible to anyone, because as I told you yesterday, if your API is getting exposed, right, then it won't take much time to let's say anyone will be using it and creating a lot of different stuff around it. You will get like a bill of thousands of dollars immediately. So as I told you yesterday, so the env files are very protected. So what this git ignore does is so this git ignore is a file in this whole project, right, which will automatically ignore all such kind of folders or files. It will ignore git env file, it will ignore some data files, it will ignore some unnecessary files which should not be uploaded on the let's say or let's say pushed to the GitHub. Okay, so it will, you can just add whatever things you want to add in this git ignore. So basically that is what exactly it does. And simply just create the repository, right? Now see guys, this is how exactly the interface you will see. Now once you are into this particular thing, try adding a files over here. Let's say create a new file. Okay, let's say name your file, let's say NLP pipeline. That is what we'll be learning today, right? An extremely important session, okay, NLP pipeline. And you can just comment the changes here. Let's say yes. Okay, you can directly comment it. You can see here now NLP pipeline is a folder now. Inside that as of now nothing is there, but it's a folder. Okay, now now see guys, now whenever you are coming into this particular part, let's say now let me just show you. Let's say now this is your simple notebook, right? Let's say it's a Python notebook that we created. Okay, so now when we are creating this Python notebook, so what we need to do is now whenever you are writing in Google Colab, simply click on file. You can see save a copy in GitHub. Simply create that. Automatically all this authorization will happen. They'll ask you to create it, and then you just need to choose what exactly is the field that you have. Let's say basic to advanced NLP, and in that you have main branch, and simply push it. That's it. Okay, automatically it will create a copy over here. You can see guys, introduction to Python programming, right? The file is being created. So this is how exactly we try to create, and this is how exactly we use this particular GitHub, right? So now what happens when you are doing this particular part means your complete whatever work you are doing, that work is now in open source. Your work is open source. Like this, from here you can also add different branches, right? Let's suppose now again in very simple terms, main branch is a branch where your final code is written, means the development level code is in the main branch. You can say instead of main it's a development branch. Okay, so now as a developer what you do is you try to create, okay, don't worry, okay, it's just like a size is bigger, so therefore it's happening like that. It will load eventually. Okay, so as a developer, as a junior developer, or as any developer, what you do, you will be creating your own separate like this branches over there. Okay, so how the flow works is, let's suppose now there is one development branch, right? There is one dev branch. Okay, Now let's say one, two, and three people you are working. So you will have some your own branch, own branch, own branch, right? So what now? Understand why everything is written in your own branch, because understand guys, we cannot simply pass whatever you have written code. Let's suppose you have access to development branch, and whatever code you have written, if you directly push that to the development, it might literally crash the whole server. Why? Because it's very normal. Understand, like whatever thing you are pushing over there, no one knows whether that is correct or not. No one knows, even you don't know how to integrate that particular part. So that is not a feasible part. Okay. What you do is you upload to your own repo, right? So from that repo, you will raise something called as PR. So this PR is called as pull request. Pull request means what? Okay, try to pull this into the main development branch. Okay, so now when the pull request is created, you will you will assign some, let's say viewers into it, like let's say just like a manager, you will add a manager or any of your senior who will be checking that particular changes that you have done, just to see like how good those changes are, whether the changes are correct or not, right? And then finally when it finds okay that is fine, then finally these things are merged into the development branch. Okay, so this is the whole flow that we usually go with in the industries, and you will see the same thing. Okay, raise a PR, do this, do that, right? So understanding these simple things is again and very important, right? So I hope this GitHub is pretty clear to everyone. And the last thing that I expect from you is to create this Notion data. Just a second. Okay, Notion. So now guys, see, first of all, let me just tell you what Notion is. Maximum of you might know about it. So Notion is just like a platform which I call it as a second brain, right? Why second brain? Just imagine like every single thing you are doing, you can literally store it here. You can store your notes, you can store your links, you can create your daily schedules, you can schedule a meetings from here, you can add the calendars over here. So means what? It is basically your second brain. So it can literally do every single thing for you. It can store multiple files, it can store links, you can create a very proper structures over here. Okay, there is a file inside that, all the different sections are there. In that, let's say NLP section is there. In that we have pre-processing, we have model deployment. So like this different folders are there. So this particular thing has an ability to store every single thing that is available. Okay, now why exactly I'm telling you to do this? Because it will keep everything very structured, right? And second thing is, my idea at the end of this session, towards the end, is to create something called as second AI brain assistance. Okay, so like we'll be creating a second AI brain assistance. We'll be using an crew AI and line graph into this, to using agentic AI. We'll be building this whole thing. But the idea is what? Idea is to extract the complete data that we have from here. Okay, complete data that we have from here. Okay, let me admit who's that. Okay, sorry. So get the complete access to the data that is available in your Notion, and eventually then create a whole pipeline around it, so that now you don't explicitly need to do any particular thing. Very easily you can fetch any kind of data from there. Very easily you can create the simple things over here, right? So in very simple terms, what that is bit advanced level project, where we'll be building and very extensive pipelines. Let's say along with that we'll be also fine tuning a lot of models. We'll also be using some GPT APIs also, Anthropic APIs also, but we'll also try to filter out which kind of responses should go to GPT and which kind of responses should only stick to any fine tuned model. Because in that particular part there are two things that we mainly think about while using any kind of LLM model. There are few things that we need to take care about. The first is cost effectiveness. Now imagine, let's say you are using you are just building a simple generative AI chatbot, right? So what you did was, you had a specific let's say data with you. So you just passed on that particular data, you just wrote simple prompt. Okay, you just took a API of this GPT. Okay, and what you did, you just asked, okay, now I need to answer the questions. Now guys, you might have seen that there is something called as token limit, right? I mean, we need to take care of that. because there is a certain limit up to which you can send the free resources, or you can use the free resources in any kind of, let's say, closed source LLMs that we talk about, like GPT we talk about, or maybe sorry, Anthropic API you talk about, DeepSeek you talk about. Okay, so these are closed source models where whatever free resources there, free resources up to certain time. After that, if you start hitting that APIs, then you have to charge for per every single click. Charges for every single click. Okay, and this is really not feasible. Understand now, guys? Let's suppose someone is using your chatbot, right? And usually, see, whenever you also go to a GPT, when you ask a one question, automatically you ask the 4 to 5 follow-up questions, right? That is very normal. Okay, so what we do is, we try to pass, let's say, what we do, so instead of hitting this API again and again and again, what we do, we try to filter the particular queries that user is passing. Means, let's suppose a user is asking certain thing. Let's suppose you have created a chatbot for e-commerce website. Okay, so now when a user is asking a queries that is like very simple, let's say, what is return policy? Okay, how can I return my order? Okay, so such kind of, let's say, responses are there. You really don't need a GPT to answer that, right? I mean, see, when GPT can be useful, when you actually need to create some kind of good responses. Let's say, you are asking, okay, it's been so long, I have not received the order, what's the status, and every single thing. So in that kind of scenario, it will try to summarize every single thing that is happening currently. Hey, we are extremely sorry for this particular thing that's happening to you. Eventually you will get an order within this particular days. So now that is a more contextual reply that you are getting. But at the same time, when someone is asking, okay, what is return policy, I want to return something, so at that particular time, even, let's say, even a simple question pair answer will also work over there, right? Or let's say you can just train a simple Mistral 7B model, or maybe any Llama symbol model over there, or any Hugging Face transformer model, which will eventually work for you in an exact similar way, the way you are expecting it to run for you, right? So in simple terms, what we need to think about, the cost effectiveness very much when you are using the LLMs, when you are using LLMs. Okay, now that is about why exactly I'm expecting you to have the notion. So about the notion, I expect you to just explore about it. It's very simple, right? It is just like a way to store everything. You can, let's say, regular meetings you are managing, regular recordings you are managing, whatever things I'm providing you on a resource, you can store that resources over there. Links are there, files are there, whatever files you are creating that are there. So at the end of the time, we'll get the access to every single thing that we have. Okay. Okay, so I hope till here all is completely fine. Now, today the main approach is to understand what exactly is the life cycle of a NLP problem, or when I talk about an NLP engineer, or when I talk about any problem that we solve in NLP. So basically, what is the life cycle of that? Okay, so life. Okay, now to those, okay, for those of the people who have, who don't have a pretty good idea about how the basic machine learning works. Okay, so for them, guys, I'm telling you, there are few resources I'll share today. Okay, and there are few things that I'll tell you what to do. So compulsorily you have to start doing that from now only, because machine learning plays very crucial role in the field of this NLP and Gen AI. Okay, I should get my boot today. Okay, but unfortunately, yeah, Mac don't support this. No, in Mac it's a bit difficult. Yeah, I like this. Okay, anyway, chalo. Okay, let's say a life cycle of any NLP problem. Now, guys, see, in this particular part, we'll be discussing the complete life cycle that an NLP engineer or NLP problem takes to solve. Now we are talking about a classical NLP problem. We are not talking about a generative AI problem. We are not talking about anything that is related to directly getting answer. Now this is more like a classical NLP problem that we'll be dealing with. Now that is one thing. Second thing is, guys, I want you all to take And there is something called as, see, in today's world, see guys, it is no longer hidden that there are so many different tools that are available to you, which can be very easily available to you, like very easily you can look into them, very easily you can use them. Let's suppose it's something like chat gpt, very easily it can help you to create a small codes, right? But now my main idea over here is to incorporate a logical thinking inside you, like you should be you should start thinking logically, right? Now when I say that particular part, so what exactly we mean? So usually the habit is, let's suppose you have a certain problem. So what you do, you will directly copy paste the whole particular thing and directly pass into the gpt, and that is where you are failing to unleash the best potential of all of these particular models. When you actually try to pass the simple chunks of that particular question, the gpt or any other model will, it will explode, it will give you the best possible results that it can give you. Okay, so in very simple terms, what I'm trying to say is, we need to start with something called as prompt thinking. You ask gpt what to do, that is fine, but let's suppose now if I'm giving a problem to solve, okay, so instead of directly copying that whole thing and just throwing it inside a gpt, try to break down that particular problem, break down that particular problem into three or four different steps, like what is the input that we have to give, what input we have, what exactly is the output that they're expecting, what are the different edge cases that we have to consider, and then finally how exactly I can write a prompt in step by step ways. So whenever you are writing a prompt, try to ask them to do a certain thing step by step. Even when the errors are coming, try to ask the errors step by step. This is what exactly I was trying to do. From this is the input that I have taken, this is the output that I was expecting, and now I'm getting an error, something called as this one. Because guys, understand, people are now currently in the world, just go and type prompt engineering, you will see thousands and lakhs of different jobs are available only for a prompt engineer. Okay, so now the problem that is happening in today's world is, it is very easy to get a skeleton project, or let's say skeleton code. Okay, gpt don't have that ability to write a production level codes as of now, right? Let's say with high level architectures or designing a system, that is not possible. But whatever simple task it is having, it is doing very perfectly. So when you're writing a piece of code, okay, so you're getting a particular skeleton over there. So what we need to understand is how to debug that particular code, and how to understand the logic for that code, and how we can use that particular code for our own use case. Okay, so these are the things that we need to eventually understand in a whole process that we'll be doing. So what I'm telling you, what on a regular basis, whatever codes that you'll be writing, whatever python practice you are doing, apply this particular logical thinking over there, because debugging is one of the most important skill that you should know. If I talk about, let's say, 6 years from now, before, like at that particular time, the writing the code was very difficult, because for that particular part you need to have the perfect understanding about all the concepts. A logical thinking had to be very perfect, right? Every single thing was required. But when you are building a code from scratch, it will take 5 years to build. Okay, and after that, debugging won't be very huge thing, because you know whatever you have built is pretty good. So debugging might take, let's say, another 1 hour. Okay, but at the same time, now when you're building and getting a skeletons from here, now the code is getting in 2 minutes. But the problem here coming is about the debugging, because see, it's a gpt, so it do not have, or any model, it do not have the knowledge about every single thing that is going in current world, or whatever new things are being updated continuously, right? Now it can definitely go to a rag and extract the most relevant documents. But still, let's suppose what can happen is, if you get a particular code, that code might have, let's say, some previous models, or let's say, previous dependencies which were used previously, now they are not in use, right? So you need to update them. So for this kind of part, the debugging is very important. So you need to write the prompts in such a way, like you are perfectly asking him, okay, I need to debug this particular thing, so how exactly I can go? So in very simple terms, what I'm saying is, guys, you have the tools, use it. Even in many interviews, they will directly tell you to use, okay, use whatever tools you want. Okay, there is no problem. But the main problem lies is, you pass the problems like something complete copy and complete paste there. Don't do that. Whatever problem you have, try to apply a thinking into it, try to build a logic into it. Because now you don't need to explicitly write a too much of code. Explicitly you don't need to use any kind of API is very very high, too much of time. So therefore having this fair knowledge about all the things, like what kind of models to use, how much exactly, let's suppose now here we were talking about uh, logical thinking. So what and how much amount of words and what exactly you should write in those particular words, what kind of instructions you should pass to that particular problem, that is where your logical thinking will come into play. It means what? Once you understand a problem, that's totally fine. Doesn't matter whether you are able to write the code or by yourself or not. Okay, you have GPT like tools here, just use it. So that's what we do, right? Now we don't write the code from scratch. We know, okay, yeah, this is the whole architecture. We'll pick that thing. We'll try to write the prompts in a very very structured way. It is giving us the answers. It is giving the best possible answers. The more and more simpler way you will ask, understand, more and more simpler way, more and more simple words you will use to ask the particular thing to him, better responses you will get. You will feel that. Okay, you will feel the responses. Okay, so that is the main logical thing that we need to apply. Okay, so that is like from a very basics, and that will be starting from now itself. Now next thing, those who have no idea about machine learning. Okay guys, so for you I'm telling you, okay, learn the simple concepts of machine learning. Means start reading about machine learning from very first. I'll tell you some resources, you can go through it. Understand what basically the machine learning is. Understand the life cycle of a machine learning project. Go in details to understand how. Okay, okay, so then you need to understand what is bias variance trade-off. What are some of the regularization techniques? How and why feature selection. In this cycle also we'll learn about that, but how and why feature selection is important. Okay, then what is bias error, what is variance error, what is overfitting and underfitting. Now what are the evaluation techniques that we use? Because whatever model you are creating, eventually we need to evaluate that model, right? So what kind of evaluation techniques we are using in machine learning? Now when you talk about the core NLP or let's say Gen AI, so in the Gen AI the evaluation techniques are different, right? But when you talk about in an NLP also, the same kind of evaluation techniques will use. So therefore that is one. What's that? You can use space for what, Amit? I'm sorry, I missed out your session. Oh, sorry, text. Okay. Sure, sure. Okay, so guys, now see, this is what I expect for from next 3 days from you, right? So you can just read about this, and to everyone, even if you know about machine learning, I would suggest to go through these basics, okay, again, because now once this is done, then I'll tell you about next things, like there are few machine learning algorithms that you should know in here. So then I'll tell you about those algorithms, okay? But for now, this is what exactly is required and this is what exactly you should do. So do it this much, okay? Now let's begin and understand what exactly is the life cycle of a machine, let's say any NLP problem. Okay, so yeah, let me just life cycle of okay. Now see guys, now when I talk about any kind of life cycle, right, let me see. Okay. Now, whenever we talk about any kind of problem in a natural language, right? So it has a certain amount of steps that we follow. Okay, that we call it as a life cycle of a particular thing, or we can say the way to approach any kind of NLP problem. So whatever NLP problem used to be solved in very classical machine learning, or let's say in classical deep learning, these were the different steps that we used to follow to achieve that particular task, right? So now in this particular whole scenario, understand one thing. See, whenever we deal with any kind of NLP problem, the first thing that we think about is data. Understand, guys, without data, any AI model is not possible. Okay, now see, in a machine learning also you have learned, and those who have a fair idea about machine learning, we know that what we do, we create the rule based algorithms, right? We create a rule based algorithm. There are certain rules that we define. There are certain types of features that we expect into that particular data, right? So from that particular part, what we do, we try to design that whole system or whole algorithm. Okay, and what is the most core part that we need over there? That is data. Now in NLP, what we do, we solely deal with a textual data. We only deal with the textual data, right? So this textual data is like so huge now. Okay, uh, on a daily basis, trillions of data points are generated only on a textual database itself. So now understand, guys, the amount of data that is being generated, and the kind and the way you are trying to handle that particular data. Okay, that is where the natural language processing comes into play. Okay, now a very classical example I'll give you. Right now, see here, handling a textual data is one of the most difficult things that you will do over the period of time. One of the most difficult things. Now let me tell you, when I say one of the most difficult things, so why exactly I'm saying this? Now understand here. See, take an example. Suppose, let's say, in machine learning or any deep learning or any kind of problem, when you solve with respect to AI, what is the basic requirement? Whenever you are passing a data to the model, so that data should be in vector form. That data should be in what? A numeric form, because we know that computers or anyone, they don't understand the text, right? So if you just pass an text to an algorithm, it will not understand that. You need to convert that particular text into, let's say, an any vector form or any kind of, let's say, numeric form, and then only you can pass that data to an algorithm. Then only it will perform some kind of operation, then it will give you the results back. Okay, but now when you talk about explicitly about, let's say, now let's say tabular data. Okay, so in the tabular data we used to have what? Simple, let's say, categories, right? Let's say one column is here, one column is here. So one category says, okay, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, only three categories are there. In one, here you have, let's say, another can be, let's say, yes and no. Okay, all everyone yes and no is there, whether he'll commit fraud or not, yes and no. Means what, guys? Here we only have two different categories. Now if I want to convert this column into a numeric form, so what I can do? Okay, simply assign 0 to yes and 1 to no. That's it. Very simple thing, right? See, you cannot pass the textual data. The only compulsory thing is we need to pass the data in form of, let's say, numbers. So when you want to pass the numbers, what you can do, this is like a simple method, right? We call it as one-hot encoding, that you can call. There are multiple label encoding that we call. You are simply passing this data and creating this in this particular way. Now one more thing. Now when you talk about image data, okay, we'll be dealing with image data also. Let's say image data CNN. Let me just show. Now see, guys, whenever you deal with the image data, right, you will see that you will be dealing with something called as pixels. Means whenever you talk about any kind of image data, so at that particular time the images will be shown in this particular way. Now look at this one. Now look at this one, guys. So whenever you process any kind of images, so let's suppose this is an image, right? So this image is distributed into grid size like this. Every single grid will be there, grid 1, grid, like these grids are there, and every single grid that you see, right, let's say this dark grid is there, so it will have bigger values. Means every single grid has some or other values. Okay, and those values lie between 0 to 150 or 255. That's a standard pixel value between 0 to 255. Now they have just normalized it, and they have just got everything into the range of 0 to 1. Why that is required, I'll tell you afterwards. Okay, but now in simple terms, what it is, even very easy for an image to represent as a text, let's say, as a number. Very simple, right? Let's say just create a grids around it, and get the pixel values. That's it. Okay. But now guys, just understand, when I say, when I use the word, it is one of the most difficult things to process the textual data. Why it is so? Now understand, I have a sentence. Okay, let's say I write, hello, my name is Sam. I work as a AI engineer. Now understand guys, let's say I ask you, this is a sentence that I have. Now if I say convert this into numeric form, right? Numeric form. Now guys, just think for a minute and tell me how can we do it. Just imagine, right? What we'll write, hello to 1, my to 2, name 3, e is 4, Saurav 5, as and 6. Like what we'll do. So that's why I told you, right? Ki processing the textual data is one of the most difficult things that you will do. Because understand here, now we need to find a logic inside it. Means when I'm saying that hello is referring to the 0, means I need to make sure that the logic of 0 has stored hello inside this particular, let's say 0 that I'm storing. When I say my equal to 1 at that particular time, that I should know that if I'm writing this as a 1, then it should be representing the logic of, or let's say word called as my only. Okay, so this is what exactly we call it as representing the text into the vector form. Representing the text into the vector form. Okay, so therefore, what I told you in very first, this is one of the most difficult things that you will do throughout, right? Because understand, processing a textual data into a numeric form is one of the most difficult things. Just now I told you, right? It's very easy to do any other, let's say, type of data. Even if you have, let's say, image data, it's very easy. Even if you have the audio data, right? Audio data has your signals, and every single signal has a value. So very easily you can just write that also into the numeric form. But text is something, this is where the problem comes into play. Okay, so now what we'll be doing, there are 6 or 7 different stages that we usually follow in any kind of NLP cycle. So the first is data acquisition. Right? First is data acquisition. Second is text pre-processing. Fourth is feature engineering. Fifth is modeling. Sixth is evaluation. And model deployment. So these are the core 6 things that we usually follow for any kind of problem that we'll be solving. Guys, one more thing, this is not a universal. Okay, this pipeline that I've seen, this is not a universal. This is more of a machine learning approach. When you talk about a deep learning approach, few steps might change, but it is not a universal problem, right? Neither it is a, let's say, we say that neither it is a very structured one. It's not like you will start from the first step only and you will go at the end. One time it's fine, that's the process. But next time when you want to improve that particular model, let's say you deployed the model, or let's say you went to an modeling, and after modeling you thought that okay, whatever algorithm that you have used is not working that fine, then what I need to do, again I need to go back and see which kind of step can be improved. So it is not compulsory that from modeling I'll go to here only feature engineering, from feature engineering I'll go to text pre-processing only. Like this going is not important. You can see where exactly the problem is coming, and you can solve that problem at that particular time. Okay, so in simple terms, what this is the simple steps that we usually follow in this whole pipeline. So this pipeline is not universal. It is not universal. Okay, so machine learning pipelines and deep learning pipelines vary a bit, right? But this is more of a machine learning approach that you have seen over here. Exact same things are happening in deep learning. It's just like in some stages we might add a fine tuning. In some stages we can add let's say redeploying the models again and again, right? So that can be few things that we can add into the, let's say, core deep learning architectures, we can say. Okay, now see, let's first of all talk about the first thing, that is and data acquisition. Data acquisition. Now see here guys, as I told you, gathering the data, right, or getting the data for any kind of problem is one of the most difficult things that usually we do. Because now just guys understand, okay, let's suppose if I have a data like Google, right, so how and what can, what is actually stopping us to build another chat GPT? Nothing, right? The only problem that comes into every single model is about the data. Okay, because the data is the main basic source, right? If you don't have that, it's very difficult to build a model. Doesn't matter how much knowledge you have about everything, but the most basic thing is about data. And when you don't have a data, then what you will do, right? So this is where, the thing called as data gathering comes into play. So the first thing is data gathering. Now there are multiple ways to gather this particular data. There are multiple sources through which we can gather the data. Okay, so the first thing is open source data sets. Now see here guys, let's suppose now the tasks in the NLP are what, a very simpler one, right? So the task can be, let's say whenever we talk about any simple task in the this particular part, let's say we have a simple task like we just need to build a simple chatbot, right? So for a chatbot, what exactly is required? Now let's suppose we'll need a certain amount of data, right? Another good example can be, let's suppose you can think about sentiment analysis, right? So means what, based on all the reviews that are available, you need to decide what exactly is the sentiment of that particular review. And that is a very very important thing with respect to e-commerce sites. Okay, then because they want to review the products, how good the products are, whether they are actually, whether they deserve to be there or not, right? Because if a particular product is having a lot of negative reviews, means what, that is indirectly affecting your business, right? Then next thing you need to think about is, how yes, okay, till now that's fine. See here, now when we talk about open source data sets, right? So open source means what? Kaggle. We have Kaggle data sets, we have stored NLP data sets. Okay, so means what, the first resource that we always hunt for the data sets is open source data set, that is Kaggle data sets. Kaggle is what guys? Kaggle is just a platform where you will see multiple data sets are uploaded. Okay, if you just, let's say go here, okay, let's suppose, and if you, let's say, Kaggle data sets, Kaggle data sets or NLP, okay, and just see here, right guys, you will see like 1,000 different, data sets over here. Now whatever is your own problem, whatever thing you are trying to solve, you can just get any kind of problem for you. Let's say resume data set is there, eventually there are like multiple 400s of resumes are written over there, right? Resume parsing is one of the very important thing that they do, right, in these days. Because when you do a LLM resume parsing, at that time only they are understanding, right, ki whether a particular student is capable or not. Like let's suppose how they will filter it, they'll have the filters like, okay, 2 years of experience, these are the key skills that we expect, and then they filter out and then they get the resumes. Okay, so like this you will find thousands of such data sets which are already inbuilt or which are already available in the, Kaggle itself, right? So that is one thing. Now second thing is, see here, web scraping. Very classical approaches, right? See here, let's suppose now you are trying to scrape the reviews. Let's suppose you want to do an sentiment analysis, right? And you want to, for a sentiment analysis, what is required? You require reviews, right? So till the time you will not have a review, you can't give the sentiment about it, whether it's a positive or a negative. So for that we need a lot of reviews. Okay, so for that particular part we do something called as web scraping. Guys, am I audible to everyone? Hello? Hello? Audio, right? Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay. So in the second, what we talked was web scraping, right? In the scraping, now guys, see, we have the different tools in Python like Beautiful Soup. Okay, that is like one library. We have Scrapey as another library, another very good library. Okay. Now we have new paper 3K. Like I will want this new paper. So see guys, whenever you want to let's say scrape the data from any blogs, right, or you want to scrape the data from articles, okay, so then explicitly this is very important. Like when you just say use the newspaper 3K, so we explicitly try to extract the data from this particular part, blogs or the articles, okay. And apart from this one, you can scrape any kind of data that you want to let's say that is available, okay. So see guys, explicitly when I'm talking about web scraping right now, what I told you, and as a, I would say, a data engineer or as a data scientist, right, so the first thing into this any kind of problem is gathering the data. So even the data engineers, they'll always try to get the data from different resources, okay. They'll try to build the whole data pipelines, okay, in ATL pipelines, use Apache Spark. There are multiple things that they usually do, not exactly sure about the some terminologies, but this is what exactly a work of a data engineer or data analyst that they do, right. But now, as of now, we are learning everything, so we should know about it. So in simple terms, what, whenever you want to get a data, you try to get the data from different resources. You can get it from Kaggle's web scraping, that is like two things that we have seen till now. The next way to get the data is through APIs for structured NLP data. Okay, now let's suppose you have news APIs. Okay, let's say if you just want to do, let's suppose something like you want to extract some data from, let's say, a news API, something like that. Okay, then you have Twitter APIs. So let's if you want to do some kind of analysis on tweets that you have, so we call it as tweet mining. Okay, then we have, let's say, Reddit APIs. Okay, because you have a lot of data available over there. Then you have YouTube APIs. Okay, now all these particular keys that I talked to you about, right, so they have their own limitations. Own limitations means what? Okay, they are saying, okay, if you want to take the data from us, okay, take it, there is no problem, but there is a certain limit. If you go behind that limit, then it will be considered as a illegal one. But still people do that, right? Still they scrape the data up to after that limit also, but then eventually that API will start working itself. They'll not hit itself, they'll just block it from their side only. So whatever data you have, you will get that much, that's fine, but that is the available data that they actually give you. So means now what's happening, guys, now you are able to understand, you understood three different ways through which we get the data. One was about, let's say, simple open source, right? You can directly find it on a Kaggle. By chance, if you don't find it on a Kaggle, you can directly get it from APIs, you can get it from scraping, right? Now see guys, in this particular case, again there are like two different ways to think about it. A data can be directly available in your own system, right? Let's suppose you might have worked on previously on the same kind of project, so you have the data. A data is provided by the client itself. A client is directly telling, okay, this is my data and this is what exactly you have to do. Okay, so now these are the two different ways, right? And either the data is not available in the system itself, or neither it is data that is not even provided by the particular client also. So if the data is not provided by anyone, then these are the resources that we are talking about. If the data is already there in present, then there is no problem to use it, right? You can directly use that particular data. So that is three things that I told you about. And the last thing, or let's say there are few more, but yes, like manual data sets, let's say manual sources. Okay, many times, okay, in many times, I would say now in today's world, as we are moving into the part of generative AI, 70% of the data you will always get through different files. Okay, like PDFs, doc files, PPTs, let's say CSVs. Okay, through emails. You also try to extract the email content also, right? Means what? 70 to 80% you will always get the data in this particular format. And guys, understand one thing, always understand, pre-processing a data and making that particular data like a model ready. It is just like, we are trying to prepare a student for a data scientist role. So what we need to do, we need to feed him with data, that too like a perfect data. Then only he can appear over there for a final exam. Okay, so that is what exactly it is. Like when you appear for the main data like this, okay, let's say whenever you are dealing with any kind of core project, understanding about the data is the most important thing that you need to think about, right? Because the data is the main source. So pre-processing that data properly, storing that data at one place properly, understanding the flows about that data, very very important, right? So these are the manual sources. So which sources we talked about? Open sources, like you can get it from Kaggle and all. You can either do a scraping, either you can do a, let's say you can just get it through any kind of APIs if you want, right? Now depends like what kind of problem you are solving. If it's very specific to use case, you can do it with respect to that use case only. And guys, understand, whenever you are sitting for any kind of interviews, right, people will be more interested to ask you about all these kind of questions. Okay, because see guys, I'm telling you, this Gen AI thing, no, literally I'll teach you in like 20 days. Okay, like everything will be done. It's not like, not so many things are there, limited things are there. Okay, so that is a different part, but main part is to become a developer. Understand, we have to, what I told you yesterday, we need to be on the side of a developer, not on the side of user. We want to be a creator. Okay, let's suppose tomorrow if something new is coming, so I should know, okay, what exactly might have happened. Okay, a transformer architecture might have been changed. In a transformer architecture they might have done some kind of changes, and this is how exactly now it is being evolved. So you should know, okay, what changes are happening over here. So therefore these cycles will never change. See, even if you are using a Gen AI, no, these cycles are being followed. Just the ways are changing. Instead of directly getting the data, now you already have a GPT API which is giving you the data, right? But apart from that, you need to think about everything. You need to think about model architecture. You need to think about deployment. You need to think about, let's say, evaluation of that particular part. So eventually, you need to think about every single step. Process won't change. It is just like instead of doing all these things, now it is being replaced by one single thing, that is API. One API is doing everything. Okay, so explicitly you don't need to get the data and all. You just get the data, and that data you can directly store it into the vector embeddings. Like already embeddings are present over there now. So it's a bit simple now, but understanding this is something that is more important for long term. Okay, so that is how exactly we talked about this manual ways. Now here comes the important thing to understand: how do we store this data, right? Understand, so storing the structured and unstructured data. Understand here, see here, whenever usually see, no, whenever you get a textual data, no, we usually try to dump that into JSON format. Okay, we usually try to dump that into JSON format, or usually it will be .txt file, okay, or a .csv file. Now depends, let's suppose CSV, when exactly we'll use. So how does CSV file looks like, you all know, right? Let's say there is a columns, rows and columns are there, different column names are there, and there are corresponding values to each and every single column. So in that kind of scenario, let's suppose you have a data where data is like this. Let's say it's like just like employees data, name is there, salary is there, address is there, every single thing is there, and that time we can store that into the, let's say in CSV file. But now that comes under something called as structured data. There is a structure to it, rows and columns are there. At the same time, now talk about unstructured data, simple reviews. One single review is there, completely unstructured, right? Like we cannot store that in any format. You can just keep it in one single JSON only. One review, second review, third review, fourth review, like this. Okay, or maybe simple TXT file. That's like a very very raw data that we call. That is called as unstructured data. Okay, so now what you can do is, let's say usually we try to store this data, store this usually structured data, right, into SQL format, into the SQL only mostly. This data is into the SQL, Postgres that we use mostly, and also a MongoDB. And like sometimes whenever this unstructured data is there, so then it depends. Let's suppose now currently we use Elasticsearch. So Elasticsearch is just like index matching platform, or we can say database, where with respect to every index there is a certain data that is stored over there. Okay, and then we can fetch it through an index ID that is there. So we'll also learn about the databases, so did not to worry about it. So in any kind of project, how exactly we'll see a structure of the data will be shown something like this. There is a name called as data here at the top. Okay, so this is a directory. In this directory there are now four different things. Let's say there is a raw data that you got somewhere. Just for today, right guys, I'll get my board today, so this won't be an issue about handwriting. Okay, so raw, you have clean data. Let's say there is some clean data that you got from somewhere. You have, let's say, next thing is label data. Okay, and then you have, let's say, final CSV that you want to create. Let's say final CSV that you want to create. Means what? In simple terms, you will always see structures like this about the data. Okay, so the names can be different, the data inside that can be different, but structures are like this. So then from this structure you try to use this data into your main format or main resource. Okay, so guys, I hope this simple thing of how exactly a data is brought, or how exactly we talk about the data, I hope everyone is clear with it. Right, now let's move on to the next part. So guys, meanwhile, anyone having any questions, anything anyone wants to ask?
You, you mentioned Elastic Search, right? And that's AWS search index. So is there one for Azure and GCP, or everybody uses AWS?
No, not everybody uses AWS, right? I mean, we are using Elasticsearch. Like there are, multiple data sets like that we have. Now, when you talk about very unstructured data sets, right? Or let's say, unstructured way to store the data. So the very first thing itself, what I told you is, you can literally store the data in. See, if I now talk about Gen AI, right? So in the Gen AI, like maximum data that we are storing, that is into the vector embeddings. Like you have the databases like FICE database, and then you have like databases which are directly given by the Google itself. Like you can directly store into the Google engines. Okay, so there are like multiple ways you can store the data. I mean, as far as this Gen AI is concerned, so FICE is there, Pinecone is there. So these are the few databases where we store it in a very structured way. Now, when I talk about, okay, see, now there are few things that we keep in mind while dealing with the data, right? Now see here, let's suppose, let me just share my screen again. Now when I talk about purely a elastic search, okay, let's take an example. So we can actually use elastic search in three different ways. Either we can run it on local server, or either you can run it on GCP or AWS. That depends. Okay, or second thing is what, when we talk about Amazon Open Search, okay, so that is just for Elasticsearch, that Amazon provides. So there, what you can do, you can host the complete data over there also. That is also one way to do it. But if your whole system, or if your whole architecture is on your own premises, like it is hosted on your own cloud only, the whole system of your company is running on your own system cloud, not any other third party cloud, at that particular time, then you have to run it in local server only. Okay, or else if you are hosted on GCP, you can run it there. On Azure, you can run it there. So there are multiple ways you can actually run this particular data. Depends, like what exactly you are using. And let's suppose now specifically, let's say if you want to avoid anything, let's say if you want to avoid AWS, okay, then you can just go with Elasticsearch only. Like they have their official cloud, right? You can store it there. So our data is in their own official cloud only. We are not hosting it anywhere on third party. Like when you are already paying them, so it's better to store it there only, right? Why you need to take it again somewhere out and again do it somewhere else? So if you are now see, and storing it on only on AWS also, you also have to like build a whole Gen AI app for that. Means what? Like maybe a Bedrock plus OpenSearch, right? So you need to think about that way, how we can do that into that let's say an AWS system. Okay, so it's always better to keep the data as simple and as structured as possible. So when they already have their own cloud, it's better to host it there only instead of going on say on any third party premises. Okay, okay, so I hope all are on a same page. We see any issues. You said AI engineers, yes, yes, what about that?
You said we should think like AI
Exactly.
engineers, not users.
Yeah. See, now that's what I told you, right? So AI engineer should have a very perfect knowledge about the development also, and he should also have a good knowledge about how to use that particular resources also. So he should be on a both sides, a developer side also and a user side also. Both combination knowledge is like something that will take us forward quite quickly in very simple terms. Okay, now see, now that is done. Now let's move forward and understand about next parts. Let's say. Hmm. Now see here guys, now we have already talked about a data equation, right? Like in that we talked about like how a data equation involves getting the raw textual data from various resources, right? And what we do is we try to create a very robust pipelines for that. So it involves everything. Now again, if I talk in very core terms, in that data also we need to think about the security reasons, right? Who are the ones who will be given the access to that data, who are the ones who can edit or change that particular data. That's like a next thing. Okay, so these are the few ways through which we get the data. Next thing is guys, now understand, from all of these particular resources you fail to get the data, means hardly you are able to get a very small amount of data, right? And this is where your data augmentation techniques comes into play. Augmentation, when augmentation comes into play means what? You hunt for multiple resources, you tried multiple things, but you are not able to get the data that you are expecting, right? You are not able to get the amount of data that you want, you are not getting that. So what you do is you do something called as data augmentation. Now now there are few ways to do a data augmentation. First of all, what is data augmentation? Means what? Whatever data you have, you are just trying to create the same data again with some kind of changes. Means let's suppose you have a image data. So if you want to create an augmentation data of image, you will try to flip that data image, you will try to rotate that at 60 degree, you will try to flip it, flip, resize, reshape, we'll try to do every single thing. So means what? If you do, let's say, resize, reshape, and let's say flip and rotate at an angle, so what happened was, for one image you created four different images, right? Though the image is same, but now there is some kind of variation into it. So the model will try to treat that as a new image itself, like a different variation of that particular image. Okay, it won't say okay this is same, just filter it out. No, it will learn the patterns into that also, right? So data augmentation comes into play. Now when I talk about a textual data very classically, so there are few things that we talk about. The first thing, synonym replacement. Synonym replacement. Now see, what we do is whenever we have a less amount of data, then synonym replacement is the first augmentation technique that we think about. Means what we do is, we just try to replace the words, important main words that are there, we try to replace them with their synonyms. We try to replace that with the synonym. So what's happening is, now you are just diversifying your data set. Whatever you have one word, you are just trying to get the synonym to that particular word only. Means what? Meaning is same only, but you are just trying to increase the data, right? So the idea is to increase the data. The more and more data you will have, the better your model will perform. Okay, then we have something called as bigram flip, another very important technique, right? So what we do is see, usually this kind of scenarios usually don't come like when you talk about bigram flips and all, because see, the thing is, we have multiple data, like we have enough of data with this particular thing only. Imagine, let's say you have, let's say, even a one single document only, and you are literally trying to take the cinnamon of each one of them. So definitely in simple terms you are increasing the data, that is fine. But when you talk about let's say what we say, when we specifically talk about this bigram flip, right? So what exactly we do is what we do, let's suppose you have and word sequence. Okay, so let's suppose there is a certain way you are following. Okay, hello my name, something like this. So my name hello will be another thing, let's say another data you will create. So means not just a bigram flip, two words you are taking and you are flipping that, two words you are taking, flipping that, two words you are taking, flipping that, right? So that's like a bigram flip that you are doing. Okay, means what? We want to create the variation inside the data to increase the amount of data, right? Second thing is called as back, another thing that we do is back translation. Now again, Back translation means what? Let's suppose trying to translate a data into some another language, right? Now it can be, let's suppose, one single phrase is there, so to that particular phrase we are just trying to talk, take that particular data into some another language. In very simple terms, just trying to create the variation inside the data. Okay, so these are few techniques of data augmentation that we follow, right? Another thing is about data from another resources, like we talked about public data sets, we talk about APIs, PDFs, every single thing we talked about. Okay, now another thing that we actually have is, you might see there are even companies. Okay, there are even companies who specifically sell the data itself. They have the data about everything, so what they do is, they literally try to sell the data on a certain amount. Okay, if you want this kind of data, these are the charges that you have to pay, right? So when you can also connect these kind of third party companies to get that particular data for you. Okay, so I think, guys, enough about data, how gathering actually works, right? So now see, once the data gathering is done, the another next step that we do is data pre-processing. Now understand, guys, this is also one of the most critical things that we usually do. Now understand, take a simple example, right? I am very simple example I'll give. Let's suppose now you have scraped the data from, let's say, WhatsApp. Okay, and let's say you want to make it accessible and you want to, use it for, let's say, some kind of application. Now understand, people literally write anything in simple terms. Means what? Let's suppose if I want to write a good night, I'll write like this. I can write GN, I can write good night. People can literally write this in 10 different ways, right? I mean, there are like multiple ways. Okay, then we use a lot of shortcuts, right? Let's say ASAP, let's say there are like let's say Sia. Means in simple terms, what, guys, when we talk in on social medias, right? So that is like a very very raw text, or I would say that particular data is the most noisy data you will see anywhere. Because understand, guys, now see, I can understand this is good night, I can understand this is good night, but is it possible for a model to understand this is good night? No. So what we need to do is, we need to think from every single perspective. We need to go into very very small details. We need to see what kind of data is available, and from that particular data we need to think what can be the perfect replacement for that particular, okay, that is good night. Okay, then we talk about like these words, like, simple words are there. So we need to think about, creating an proper full, what we call, like a proper meaning to that particular sentence, right? We also need to make sure about that. So this text pre-processing that we talk about, right? So there are few steps that we follow. The first step is called as data cleaning. Data cleaning. Now understand here. So this is why, let's say this data is called as very very noisy data, right? I think I don't need to tell you how texts are actually written, right? So this text can be written in any of the shortcuts and it can go to any extent, right? You can just imagine about it. I think you might be using it or might have seen it. Okay, so everyone might have been through it. So that's why I told you, right? Like handling a textual data is very very difficult. Okay, you can literally handle any other type of data very easily. Handling a textual data is very very complex task, right? But now you have the things like GPT, so you don't need to specifically mention and worry about all of these things. Like when we used to build these models, we literally had to think from very very simple perspective. We'll be building one project, right? Very end to end and very scalable project we'll build. I'll just show you also, like after this project itself. Today, once we are done with this one, in the next session we'll directly start implementing this part. First of all, we'll implement data gathering. We'll try to gather data from multiple resources. We'll try to store it somewhere, right? Then we'll go into the pre-processing step that we are doing now. Okay, now inside the pre-processing there are multiple steps. The first is about basic data cleaning. Now guys, understand, when I say basic data cleaning, what are the simple things that comes into basic? Means removing HTML tags, right? Like very simple things, removing punctuation marks, handling the emojis, right? Now understand, a model cannot understand a emoji, right? Your smiley face is there, it cannot understand that what it is. So we need to replace that also, because that's a noisy data. We cannot pass that kind of data to the model. Okay, second thing is HTML tag removals. Now understand here, see what I told you. While scraping the data, you try to scrape the data from multiple resources, right? You try to take the data from PDFs or maybe from third party websites and everywhere. So when you try to scrape the data, so there are multiple HTML tags that comes along with it, because if we are scraping the data, right, so we are scraping the data from the server, so it's very normal to get some kind of links into it, it's very normal to get some kind of HTML tags into it, right? But now see, it is just like what we say, no, you are preparing for something, so you need to be very very perfect about that. It's not like, okay, basically you're just doing some other thing and you're just getting out of it. No, data cleaning is must and very very important. Means in general, what guys, what is our final plan is, let's say we say, no, okay, uh, there's a CEO sitting in the office. So what he's saying, okay, all these people, who are working for him, he's telling, you take all the interviews, you find the best possible ones, and then only send those people to me, then I will see, okay, whom to take and whom to not, right? So in simple terms, what we are trying to say, this is what exactly this filtering does, this is what exactly the model expects. What model is expecting, hey bro, the better the data you will give me, the more cleaner, the more proper, the more structured way, in a more better way you will give the data to me, the better results I will give you, the better results I'll give you. Okay, so therefore what you call that, this data cleaning is one of the most important steps into the whole life cycle of an NLP problem. So in the basic data, what I told you, it's about HTML tags, removing punctuation marks, right? Removing links if there are any links kind of thing, handling the emojis, right? Another thing, important thing that we do is, handling this particular spelling checks. That is also important. Now see, now one more thing, guys. Whatever pre-processing steps that I'll be teaching or I'll be telling, it is not necessary that every single step is applied for every single type of problem. Now imagine, let's suppose you are doing a task like, let's say, sentiment analysis. Imagine, okay, imagine you are doing a task like a sentiment analysis. Come on, man. Okay, sentiment analysis. Okay, so guys, just one simple thing. Can you all tell me, do we really need to handle like so many of pre-processing steps into this particular task? What do you think? Like, what do you think? Like, do we really need to handle like so many pre-processing steps into this? Definitely not. Right now, just understand what is idea. Idea is to understand whether the review is positive or negative. Idea is what? Idea is to find whether the review is a positive or a negative review. Now let that be review. If you someone is writing, okay, movie was, let's say, very positive, or someone writing, okay, positive, something like this, someone is saying nice, means in simple terms, anyway the whole sentence, if you are looking at, okay, yeah, something positive they are talking about, we'll directly say, okay, it's positive. So I don't care if he has written positive like this, or he has written positive like this, or he has written the positive in some other way. Okay, I don't care, because I only need to understand the sentiment over here. So in such kind of scenarios, I don't care about the spellings. You write any kind of spelling, it's totally fine to me, because that is not my cup of tea as of now, because my problem is completely different. Now at the same time, let's suppose now you are trying to build an application, something like Grammarly, just like for students, right? Kids, we are trying to build, okay, they should know what kind of spellings are there and everything is there. Now understand, guys, if you are doing the some kind of basic data cleaning for these kind of applications like Grammarly, now what you need to do, you perfectly need to handle every single basic spelling checks inside this particular area, because we are teaching the grammar, and if we give the wrong spellings, then it's very bad, right? So therefore what I told you, every single step that you follow, it totally depends on the kind of use case that you are trying to solve. Whatever kind of use case is there, according to that your change, processing steps will change. So as I told you about now Grammarly, right? So here what you can do, HTML tag, let's say, you can remove. That's like a basic cleaning. If you have any kind of emojis, what we do, we try to replace those emojis with the actual name. Let's say a man smiling face, something like that. Then we have to check about the basic spelling mistakes that we are doing, right? And then that comes under the simple, like, let's say what we can say, a basic cleaning. These are the basic cleaning things that we talked about. Now there comes a basic pre-processing. Basic pre-processing. The most important thing that we do into the whole NLP task is something called as tokenization. Guys, understand here. See, whenever you have any kind of text, so let that be any kind of text, okay, whatever huge text, whatever smaller text, no model in the world can process the complete data at once. no model in the world can process complete data at once. So the most important thing that we need to think about and what we do is something called as tokenization. Means what? We are trying to cut down that whole sentence into different tokens. Simple tokens. One token, second token, third token, fourth token, like this. Now that tokenization can be a simple word token also, like word by word you are doing the tokenization. That is called as word tokenization. And you can also do a sentence tokenization. Now just imagine, let's say you have like 5,000 documents, right? Now again in that also, like you need to think, right? Let's say if you simply do, let's say if you just simply do a word tokenization, then it will just be very huge space that will be taken, right? But at the same time, what you can do now in such kind of scenarios, you can do sentence tokenization. you know Means you are trying to break the sentences, first sentence, second sentence, third sentence, fourth sentence, like this you are going by sentence. Okay, so there are like multiple things there you can do: sentence tokenization and word tokenization. Depending on the size of the data, depending on the kind of use case we solve, according to that we change these kind of things. So that, as the thing will come, we'll discuss about that. So that is what exactly the tokenization is, a very important thing, right? Now another thing is something called as stop word removal. Another very important thing. Another very important thing, right? Now understand here. See, what exactly is the meaning of stop word? Now see guys, let's say in a whole bunch of, let's say, text that you have, or let's say in a whole text that you usually get, so you will see that the simple words like is, or, and, I, am, you, would, wouldn't, wouldn't, means the words which are explicitly used to form the meaning of the sentence, which are just used to create the meaning of that particular sentence, which they are used for the meaning, right? Let's say I write, you know uh, let's say name Saurabh. Does it make sense? No. If I say my name is Saurabh, now it makes more sense. Now what happened? My and is, these are the stop words. In simple terms guys, what is the basic idea? The basic idea is we need to create an application which is very specific to the particular domain. Now understand, I want to create an application which is very specific to where we are talking about the financial terms. कि मतलब we want to build a model which will be focusing more on financial terms. So in that particular case, what we do, we try to calculate the frequency of the words, means how frequently that particular word is offering. Let's say one of the examples can be a topic modeling. We'll learn about that topic. Okay, topic modeling means what you have a bunch of text. Okay, just like a newspapers do, right? So how they do, they'll try to segment news of sports differently, politics differently, entertainment differently. So how they are segmenting that? They have the whole bunch of text in together. So that is what you call topic modeling. Means based on the looking at that particular data that we have, we will try to see what kind of words are frequently used in that particular document. And more documents, frequent words are there. Now let's suppose sports is there. So there can be, let's say they are talking about football, passing, bat, rugby, and they're talking about multiple words together. So what we can say now, as a human also will think, okay, yeah, they are talking about some sports. So this can go inside the sports category. Okay, at the same time if they're talking about some political news, it will go into the political part. So in simple terms, what we are trying to say, we try to check what kind of words are occurring frequently and again and again and again. So then we can understand. Now guys, just imagine, okay, in any kind of sentence, that, right? Is, the, simple words are there. So these come maximum number of time. Okay, these words comes maximum number of times, right? I mean, you can just imagine, right? So these are the kind of words which come maximum number of times. Now guys, imagine if you want to do a certain task, and if these words are coming again and again and again, so then what will happen is the frequency of is will be max, frequency of a is max, frequency of the is max, right? So means what? Every single simple stop word that you will see, their frequency is going to be higher than any other word that is present over there, right? Because those words are used for the forming the meaning of the sentence, so eventually we need them. So this is why exactly we remove something called as stop words, because now we want to perform a task which is very specific to use case. So in such kind of scenarios, like is this particular word called is telling me what kind of okay, let's say I got a maximum frequency of is. So can we just define anything by is? Okay, yeah, is maximum time, so this is like a topic of what? Nothing. But at the same time, now let's suppose you are getting, let's say, football multiple times, right? Then what you can say, okay, yeah, from this football I can say that, okay, this particular news can go into, or this particular section can go into sports area or sports section. So in simple terms, what guys, we always try to focus on most important words which are present in this particular whole data. Because understand, passing on the whole data inside the database is also not feasible. Like unnecessarily, why to pass something that is not going to help you, that is not going to help you to create a final tasks, right? So this particular thing is called as, this is where we talk something called as stopword, oh sorry, removal of the stopwords. Okay, so I hope guys, I hope, right, you are understanding this, right? So stopwords kya hai, why there is a need to remove them. Okay, so the only simple thing you need to understand is we need to remove because we don't have, let's say we don't have so much of unnecessary memory to store anything that is available. And when you try to store such kind of words, then eventually your model will never perform good, because your model will always be busy, like, means thinking ki, okay, all these words are coming so many number of times, and there are few other words also which are coming little bit less than them. So what we should decide, what exactly it is. So this is what exactly we talk about it. So it's not like, we are removing them by purpose. It's like that's a necessary, that's a requirement. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. Guys, am I audible? Everyone? Okay, thank you. So guys, I hope this, why exactly this pre-processing and removal of the stopword is important, you might have understood. Whatever I'm teaching guys, your task is to write about every single thing, read about what stopword removal is in very very details, why it is required, why, what is the significance of it, try to read them about in very very details. I'll also share the links to you, I'll also share the resources with you, but these are very very important, right? Because now, see, the stopwords that you say, right, we need to be specific about use case. Means what, whatever words that finally will be storing in our database, so those words or those kind of data, that should reflect a very very proper and clear, let's say, view about what exactly we are trying to do there, right? So storing unnecessary words which do not have any kind of meaning, let's say all these words are for what, just to get the meaning of a sentence, that's it. But now let's suppose if I want to do a sentiment analysis, a simple task, right? In the sentiment analysis, do I really need to the whole review? I don't need to read the whole review. All I need to do is, okay, just find how many positive words are present in this data, that I can do. See if, if he's talking about any sarcasm, see how many negative words are there. Okay, let's suppose now, even if I have, let's say, a bunch of text like this, let's say this huge amount of text is there, all text is there, and from that, let's suppose now someone asks me, okay, hey, please identify what are the different topics this document is talking about, right? So in that particular case, I don't need to store every single sentence anywhere, right? I don't need to store that. What I should do, I will process from the first only, and I will see what are the important words that I can see in that document. Let's suppose if I can see, some big names like this, let's say Shah Rukh Khan, I'll see Virat, I'll see Cristiano, I'll see different people, then I'll see football, then I'll see politics, then I'll see Modi ji, then I'll see. So when I see this keywords, right, so through that, it becomes more easy to identify the different topics. Yeah, this whole document is talking about these are different segments, and this is what exactly, is a topic that we have. So now understand guys, when I, for doing a certain task, let's say topic modeling, did I actually need to, did I do the complete data, did I store this complete data anywhere? Definitely not, right? What I did, I only picked up the important words. I only picked up the words which are actually important in this whole sentence. Okay, I picked up those words and then I stored that somewhere, and then I found out, okay, which are the different areas that are actually available as of now. Okay guys, so therefore it is not like, so all the sentences like is, am, you are, wouldn't, would, could, all these simple words are there. Those are explicitly used for sentence formation or meaning, or gathering the sentence meaning of the sentence, but which is really least required anywhere else, because there we are trying to do a task. We are not trying to understand the whole data and keeping at that data anywhere. We don't want to understand the complete meaning for a simple task like this. Yes, we need to understand the meaning as we move forward in the transformer architecture. You will see how we are processing the data, but still, like, removing the simple data and all, is like very very important. Okay, so then we talked about stopword removal. Another thing in the processing that we do is something called as stemming and lemmatization. Now see guys, what we talked about right now, we just said we always want to keep a data which is very very precise. Okay, very very precise. Now so imagine there is a thing, let's say written, let's say he plays, playing, played. Okay, then let's say there is another thing, let's say work, worked, working, worked as. Okay, so in simple terms, what guys, all these particular words are fine, they will be used multiple times, but what is the same word that they have? Play. Everything originates from here only, right? Play, 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 work, work, working, every single thing is like what? Work is a stem word, that's a root word. Okay, so in simple terms, what this stemming and lemmatization does is, what it says, okay, see, we want to keep the important things only in the data, then why there is a need to keep playing or played? Anyhow we are not, explicitly we don't want to understand any kind of meaning of it. So see, playing, what playing represents means a current form, what played represents a past form, what plays represent, let's say, current form. So that if we know that, that really doesn't matter, so then what we do, we simply try to convert that into the root form. Because understand, in a huge text, if I keep all the type of different stems over here, so what will happen, eventually we are storing the data, we are increasing the size of the data, we are unnecessarily, increasing a lot of things inside that, right? Size is being increased, processing is being increased, every single thing is being increased. So when you try to convert that into the root form, means what we are doing, whatever words that we have, those words will be converted into their root form only. If plays is there, we also call that as a play. Playing is there, it will be play. Okay, played is there, that will be play. Okay, so that is the simple meaning of what exactly the stemming and lemmatization actually means. We will perform everything, okay, don't worry about it, right? Another very important step that we do into this process is something called as lower casing. Now this is like a very first step itself, right? Now understand guys, Python is a case sensitive language. Means what? Let's suppose if I'm writing hello, or let's say machine learning is very famous, something like this, and about machine learning there are algorithms, something like this. Okay, now understand guys, see, when I say case sensitive language, means what? The model, this, the any kind of model will try to treat this machine as a separate token and this machine as a separate token. Why? Because this is the capital and this is the small case. Okay, so that should not happen, therefore we should have all the data in a same single lowercase or uppercase, but it's always good to have a lowercase, right? So therefore we try to lowercase every single type of data into the lowercase form only, just to inform, it's like, converting all the text to a lowercase to ensure the uniformity in the text analysis. The text analysis should be very very uniform, means it should not be like, okay, few things are uppercase, lowercase, so eventually, it will just try to treat all those uppercase differently and lowercase differently. Okay, so that is what exactly comes under the basic pre-processing. Now we talked about basic cleaning, now we talked about basic pre-processing. Now we'll talk about something called as advanced pre-processing. Okay, now guys, see, in the advanced pre-processing things, there are multiple things that we do. There's something like POS tagging, and we do parsing, we do, let's say resolution. Okay, now guys, see, there are like multiple things that we perform over here, right? I mean, you don't need to so about this, I'll discuss in the later next part, right? Whatever few things are remaining now, those are like not very very huge as these are, because these are the things that were more important to understand with respect to a life cycle, right? So we'll talk about this, from the next session. So it is more about like, so see, now what we did now guys till today, so whatever things that we did, we started from understanding like what things are required, then we started to understand what is the life cycle of any NLP problem. In that we defined like what are the different ways we go into the this problem, means what, when a problem is coming, so from that particular problem till the deployment, what are the different steps that we usually take in any kind of NLP problem? So that we're going to discuss. So we talked in very details about how to gather the data, what are the different ways we get the data, how do you store that particular data. Then we eventually talked about what is pre-processing. In the pre-processing, we talked about a very basic cleanups. Then we talked about some basic pre-processing. We talked about basic cleanup. We talked about, and now we'll talk about advanced pre-processing, in which we do something called as POS tagging, coherence resolution and parsing and all. So why it is important and all, so that we'll discuss in the next chapter. Okay, so guys, I hope session was very informative to you. Everyone might have understood whatever things we have covered. Okay, there is only one task that you have. By today itself you will get an access to the dashboard also, right? So you all can just log in into it, and I'll give you the access to an enrolled user. So there, from now you can see all the videos uploaded, assignments uploaded, right? So one thing that you want to do is, as a today, one task is there. Try to read about the complete, as I told you initially only, read about the life cycle of a machine learning engineer. So those who don't have the idea about how this NLP works as of now, if you don't have a basic idea about simple things, I've already given you the task initially only. Try to do that particular part, understand the basic machine learnings, bias variance trade-off, understanding how regression techniques work, how to do a feature engineering, how to select the features, what kind of thinking you should implement while selecting the features, right? So once you understand that particular part, eventually you'll go forward, and whatever task that is there, so that I'll let you know in the group itself, right? But for now, whatever things I have told you, life cycle of both of them, this is very huge, and it's very important. So that will be more than sufficient to read for next few days, right? So in the next lecture now, guys, as soon as this is done, we'll directly jump onto the implementation part, right? So we'll be taking a very proper data sets from different resources, and then we'll be storing that data at one place, and then we'll be performing all these particular steps on it, right? So that will be treated as a one single project, so that there you will create your first project. Okay, so now see, there are different methods to do a tokenization. There are different methods to do a basic pre-processing, right? There is different ways to do advanced pre-processing. All these particular steps also we need to see, that also will apply, right? Okay then, guys, I think it was great talking with you all. If anyone have any questions, please, or else we are good to go. Yes. Can you share that? I can't read at the moment more about it. Sure. Just ping me, okay? I'll share the resources with you. Just wait for a sec. What I'll do is, as of now, though, I don't have such. I have everything stored, but I'll store, share it on WhatsApp itself, okay? Just ping me personally. Okay? So then, guys, makes sense. Bye bye. Take care.